Hi, friends, welcome. Can you believe it? We are halfway done. After this week, you are halfway through this Python course. So we are in week 8. A little bit of housekeeping. Today's a pretty light day, but so we're just going to build out the counter tool, and then we're going to see just a couple different things that we can do with that. But before we do that, obviously, discussion questions. So you have a discussion question due this week. Please get that done by Sunday. And then your core assignments, keeping up with your core assignments. If we're looking here, this is a lighter week in regards of, you're not doing all these assignments. And that's again because Ninja Gold is a tough assignment. It's a tough one to sort of do. It's very similar to counter. There's just a couple different things that you're going to have to do in order for it to kind of pass through.
What's so what is so difficult about the Ninja Gold?
Just overall, it's a tough assignment because you're doing session, you're handling a bunch of different processes, and then really the Sensei bonuses can be quite challenging. Really make you use some have to look into some different options or different ways to kind of handle data. So all
Um,
stuff that we've used, but you'll have to kind of think outside the box for this.
so are the Ninja bonuses required?
No, nope.
So just the first four.
Yeah, just the first 4
Okay.
is all that's required. So
Okay, you had me a little worried because I was like, I try to do as much as I can. Some of those sensei ones, yeah,
they're
they're not that
challenging.
easy.
No,
Yeah.
they're not. They're hard, and that's the whole point. And that's also
Okay.
just to, we don't help a ton with this, and I don't go through a ton of that stuff with you because this is an assignment. It's our midterm. It's not really a midterm, but that's just kind of what it states. Um, but it just is trying to invoke self learning in this sense, not that like you have to teach yourself, but creating the tools and learning the process of, okay, looking up and saying, how could I do this, right? Because that's a huge part of your job is going to be, can you figure out how to handle data, how to handle, like how to read Stack Overflow, how to handle all of that information. So that's kind of a big portion here. But yeah, no, the first 4 is all that's needed for your core assignment. Cool. But that's all we have for this. And then today, what we're doing is we're just kind of continuing session. We're going to build out counter. And so what counter is just an assignment, um, just an assignment for us that we're going to deal with session. And so it's just going to be a way to handle some information or send some information to our session and then be able to update it, reset it, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to build this out today. And then again, there's going to be some things that we can kind of look through and handle on our back end that I can kind of give you as a secret for Ninja Gold. So that's what we're going to build today. So what I would say is let's go back and do a quick refresh of how we're going to handle our code, right? So you got the server PY here. Now, there's a few things I'm going to need to do in order for me to run this. I'm here. I've got my week 8 lecture. I'm going to say pip env shell. So I'm going to create a shell here, create an environment. Again, I'm getting my backpack for me to take it. Cool. So I've created that. Now I'm going to say pip install Flask.
Oh, so you could do pip env shell first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shell creates the environment, and then you could say pip install Flask, and then it'll install that in your environment.
Okay.
So if you say pip install Flask, that's just going to globally install Flask, where if you activate your environment first, it just adds it to that backpack, right? That environment.
Right. Okay.
Cool. So I've done that. I'm on my Windows computer, so it doesn't show up on the left here, which can be quite frustrating. But I know that it is working because I did pip env shell and it's launching the subshell. So I know that it works. I could always do, if you want to see what you have installed, you could say pip list. And then this will get you a list of what's in your current environment. And so when we say Flask, we get all of this stuff. All of this stuff is added in as a package. So this is what is currently in my backpack right now. Cool. Well, if we go to this process, I'm just going to take kind of the main portions. And so we're going to say from Flask, import Flask. So this is the first thing, right? Then we're going to create my application. So I'm going to say Flask name. Now I've got, I'm going to handle that route here in a second, but what I want to do is I want to go through this. We've handled these two. The next main thing I want to handle is this dunder. Dunder name equals dunder main. So let's go ahead and handle that. So I'm going to say if dunder name equals main, then I want to app debug is true. Now, if you're on a Mac and you haven't handled the localhost 5000 thing, then here's where you will need to put port equals 5001 or some other port number. But if you're on Windows, you can just keep it as normal. Cool. So this gets us everything we need here. Now, I'm going to be using session, so I have to make sure I bring that in up top. I'm also going to be rendering a template. I'm going to handle a form. So if I'm just looking at this, right? If I'm just looking at this counter assignment, sorry, let me find it. If I'm just handling counter, I see that I've got two buttons here. Now, I know, Estrella, you were doing it the very hard way with kind of manipulating the JavaScript and having on clicks. That is a way you could do it. That's not how we need to handle it right now. We can just actually create two different forms. But what we're trying to create is we're going to have some sort of H1 that says counter. We see that we're going to want to show some sort of value here. And then when we click a button, it either goes up or it resets. And then maybe we're going to add a subtract button and then maybe a top by 2 button, something like that, right? Or like random, add a random number between 5 and 10, something of that nature. So that's what we're going to build out. So I'm going to go to my handy dandy Bootstrap. I'm going to come down here to the CDN. I copy to clipboard. Again, you don't have to use Bootstrap. I love to do Bootstrap. And I'm going to put this in my HTML file. Can anybody tell me what folder do my HTML files go in?
Your templates.
Yep, exactly. So here I'm going to have templates. And then within that, let's just have a index.html. I do the exclamation point is just the shorthand to kind of get me this whole thing. And then right here is where I put my link right here. Cool. So now I can use Bootstrap as much as I want. So I'm going to say dot counter or container, sorry, dash fluid. Now what dash fluid does is it takes up the entire width of the screen versus the container is just a shorter version. So let's take up the entire width. That's a-okay. And then what I want to do is let's kind of, again, build this out where I want an H1 that says counter, some sort of value, and then 2 buttons. So let's go build those out. So within this, I'm going to say H1. This is going to say counter, and then we can kind of change it in a bit. Now I'm going to have a value for session. I don't have that right now, so I'm not going to put that, but I need to have 2 buttons. And the way I'm going to handle it is I'm going to have 2 different forms. So I'm going to say form. They're going to be a post form. That right now I don't have an action. I don't have a route, but it is methods post. And all it's going to have in here is a button. And this button, this button is going to have a BTN and the BTN primary, which is going to be my blue button. And then we're going to say, what's it say? Click. Well, that's terrible. We're going to say increase or add. What do you guys think? Increase or add? What makes more sense?
Increase.
Add will be quick. Oh, hey,
Okay.
Jeffrey.
It's the
So,
same.
so are you making that, you're not making that same assignment, are you? But just something,
I am, but I'm building up on the assignment. We're gonna add some different things too.
okay,
So I've got this form that's got an action. We need to fill that out, right? We can call this add. And so when this button is clicked, we're going to go to this route here. So there's a couple things I need to do. First, I need to get the route that gets us to this, right? And so I use my decorator of app route. And then I'm going to create a function called index. And then can anybody tell me what index is going to do? It's a pretty simple function at the moment. What's it going to do? I just don't want to go under or else it's going to autocomplete.
So doesn't it like refresh back to the main page?
Yeah, exactly. What tool does it use to do that? So kind of give me let's just do this. Cool. So I'm going to say def index. Okay. And so what am I going to do here? If I just wanted to show that first page.
Well, I ended up doing a if else statement in that one, so I'm trying to think like before I even added that.
Okay. All I want to do right now is I want, whenever my user goes to localhost 5000, I want it to go to this index.html. How
Oh,
would I do
you
that?
type in return
Mm-hmm.
render template.
There we go. And then I put in my
Index
index.
HTML.
Exactly. Now I got a squiggly line because I don't have render template. So let's bring that in.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
Does it have to be in a certain order, or as long as all the right words are in there, like it doesn't
Like
have to be
this?
like, no, I mean like on top where it says from Flask, import Flask, and
Oh,
then you
no,
have
it doesn't.
session.
It doesn't have
Okay.
to be. It doesn't have to be in order.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it had to be in particular order or it wouldn't work correctly.
Nope. Nope. It is in whatever order you want it to be. Say okay.
because usually with that,
Okay.
I always put render template first and then session.
Yeah, it does not matter. You can do it either way.
Okay,
And
good to know.
I have
Yeah.
a question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have a boilerplate for server.py.python pretty much? Just like HTML?
We don't, and you're gonna hate this. Next week, we're gonna change everything we're doing. From here, we're gonna do something called modularization, and we're gonna disperse it throughout an entire backend. So we don't have it right now. Because what we're gonna end up having it look like is something like this. I guess I'll just give you a little peek. Let's say CRUD. I think this one I can see yeah. So our back end is going to look like this. We're going to have controllers and models and templates. That's going to have all this code. This is what we're going to learn in 2 weeks. Actually, next week is when we start. So
Whippy.
we'll be okay. I promise. There's plenty of time. We take it slow. We do CRUD for like 4 weeks. So that was like end of week 4. So we got another 4 weeks. So we're okay. So no, Jeffrey, we don't, because we will move to something called modularization where we break it out. So right now we have what you would call maybe a monolithic file where everything is living in here. And then we're going to break that out. Cool. Great. So yes, this route is going to get us that index.html. So let's just go ahead and even try this for right now. So say Python server.py. It's open. And we say localhost 5000. Great. So I've got this counter and I've got this add button. Add button. Cool. That's great. That's exactly what we have designed it to do. Awesome.
Could I see the index.html really quick?
Mm-hmm.
Button plus. Okay. Action. Okay. All right.
I'm going to ask ChatGPT, how do we get the element in the center in Bootstrap? So there we go. We just say MX auto. So let's just do another dot MX auto. And then we'll move this. Save that. And then we come here and we refresh. And it did not work. Okay. That's all right. We don't need to do that for right now. Wonder why that didn't work though. Oh, along with dblock or deflex. Let's try dblock. This will be my last try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay. A-okay. That's not the focus of today. Okay.
I think one of the divs is not quite in the right place, I think.
It doesn't matter on HTML, but yes, we can change that. Like it doesn't, Python is what cares about indentation. In theory, you could have all HTML on one line. It would look disgusting, but you could do that and it would still run. But we want to make
Okay.
sure that we have a better idea. So that's a great call out. Thanks, Kevin. Cool. So now we can see, yep, this all is in there. Okay. So we have this ad and we haven't done anything with that yet. So I'll give you guys as kind of a choose your own adventure. Do we want to figure out the functionality of ad, or do we want to also create maybe my reset button and get all the, visualization part first, and then we handle the functionality? What do you guys think?
I usually do the visualization first.
Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. So I'm gonna have another form. That's gonna be post. And what we'll have is our action is going to say reset. It's a post form. And then same sort of thing. We're going to say button dot btn danger. And then we're just going to say reset. Now danger is going to get me, give me 1 second, Kevin. Danger is going to get me a red button. And so we have two different forms, and that's a okay. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
So the add and the reset, are those just like keywords, or like what are those?
That's going to be the route that we end up going to. We haven't built that yet, but that's what our
Okay.
route is going to be.
Okay.
This could be anything we want. It could be unicorn and cupcake.
Okay.
Yep, could be anything. Cool. So now if I were to go here and we visualize, now I've got add reset. I'm going to make these because they were side by side. So a real quick thing we could do is just say dot row, and that should put them in the same row. Say side by side. What if I don't say fluid?
well, then move to the middle, closer.
No, but I don't know why. It should be.
Maybe if you add the flex.
Yeah. What if I also just do? I wonder if it's taking up the entire width. So I say column. So class equals call medium.
3 maybe.
Yeah, we'll say 2 because it's just the form.
Yeah, I've been looking a lot at Bootstrap because oh my god, it's I didn't realize there was just like so many shortcuts kind of.
Yeah, that's so much easier, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Looks a little bit better. Okay. Not sure why this is still.
How do you get the counter in the middle?
So I'm trying to figure out. I'm wondering if I get rid of this div in one of these. And then I say this would be.
Right? Text center.
I'm wondering if it's MX Auto. And then if this doesn't work, then we'll try something. What'd you say, Estrella?
I have put text center under H1 class. I put text dash center.
Cool. This would be a great time. We could read the documentation. Okay. Hey, there we go. So I'm wondering if we can move those to the center as well.
Like maybe put the add and the reset in a div and then kind of do the same thing for that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, let's see, we got buttons. I wonder if it's going to say, how do we do in the middle? Button tags. Here we go. Let's add this. Wait, what was that? Actually, let's add this here because it's my form. Let's try this and then we can kind of change and adjust. Probably gonna be too big. I think I want call 3. Okay, better. I still think that's too large of a button. That's okay. To call 2. We'll call 1. Perfect. Okay. Great. So pretty middle. There's some things that we could do with this. I think it's gap 2, so we'll do gap 1. See if it gets it closer together. Nope. Okay. I think that's great. Cool. So we got that all set up. Now let's go handle the functionality. And this is going to be the portion that right here's kind of the meat and potatoes. So just like Kevin pointed out, we have 2 different actions that we created. Again, this can be anything we want. In this case, we called it add and we called it reset. And so let's handle that, right? Those are just app routes. So I'm going to say app.route. I'm going to say /add. And I'm going to say def add. And then it'll do something. It's going to always return redirect. Anybody tell me why it's going to redirect?
Because it's going to like a next not form, what's the word?
Because you can't, this is going to be a post and you can't render on a post.
Exactly. So if it's going to be a post, what else do I have to add in here?
Method.
Yeah.
Equals at the brackets post.
Mm-hmm.
Capital.
Yep. That's exactly right. Is it method or methods? I can never remember that.
So anytime you're dealing with you add an HTML template and you're adding those the input and the labels where you're actually typing something and you want something back, that's when you do the post.
When you are giving information, right? When we are taking information from our user, or if we are, in this case, we just have a form that we're submitting, that's a post request, so we're giving something. And I'll show you why we'll do it as a form here in a second. That's why we're going to do it as a post. So basically, if you're taking information, you can really think if it's a form, it's a post request. Outside of that, it's not always that. Unless it is, let me backtrack. The only time it would not be a post request, if it was a form, is if you're updating something, right? So if you're updating
Okay.
or editing and it's a form, then that's when you have to navigate. It's still a post request, but are you navigating to add, or are you doing, you updating? That's gonna change, but regardless, it is a post request, whether you're updating or doing it. So we
Oh,
kind of backtrack.
So,
A form
so
is always a post request.
okay, so I thought with post requests, information is sent to the server from the client. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
You're gonna have a request. Now we might not do anything with it. So in this case, we're not we could have request.form, right? And that's part of the request that's coming in. We're not doing anything with that because we don't have any input fields. We're just kind of doing a button, but yes, it is a request being sent from the client to the server. Now you can still have GET requests. So you're always, any sort of interaction you have, this is a request from the client to the server. It's just a GET request. Really, you can think about it when you're handling a form, it's a post request. And we never, ever, ever render template on a post request, so we always redirect. So I'm gonna go build that same thing. Just for our reset. And that is methods equals post. Not method, just wanted to point that out. And then we'll have a def reset. And then we will return. We're going to have some functionality. And then after that's all done, we're going to return redirect. And I had to bring in redirect from the top there. So it is there now. And then same sort of thing, we need to do some functionality. Okay, so what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to, when these buttons are clicked, I want to add to some value that I'm keeping track of. So if I'm going to persistently keep track of some information, what's a tool I can use in order to do that within Flask? Learned about it last week. Anybody remember? How do we keep track of information persistently? It's on this page here. Any ideas?
Trying to go back and see.
Has to deal with cookies.
Session.
Exactly, Jeffrey. It's session. Session is a way that we can keep track of information, right? And it is persistent, meaning that it's going to, however many redirect, once it's established, we have that and have that available to us. So what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to create a session value to keep track of my count, right? So once I click a button, I want it to increase my count or reset it, or we'll create a decrease here in a bit. So that way we can change this number as much as we want, right? Now there's a couple things just as a reminder when setting up session is we first have to bring it in. So let's go to my code and then I've already brought it in actually up here. And then the second thing I need to do in order for session to work is I need to create a secret key. So all you say is app, and this must be after your app declaration. So don't try to do it before. So don't try to do it like, here. because app hasn't been declared yet. Do it down here and we say app.secret key equals, and this can be anything you want. Pizza's life. We have to have this or else session's not going to work. So make sure you are setting up your secret key. Again, it's just this line. It could be anything you want. Cool. Now this allows us to use session. And so what I'm wanting to do is here, all I want is to take a value that in theory we should have, and I want to increase it a little bit. So let's think about the functionality of my website. We're going to counter here. Cool. We have this little GIF and we see that when we load in, we're clicking this and this is increasing here, right? And then if I click reset, it goes down to 1. We're going to make it 0, but that's okay. So let's think about this. Where in my code am I going to establish this value, or that, hey, I've got some number I'm keeping track of? Do I want to do that in the ad only when they add that? What do we think?
Repeat the question, Will.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to do that. So when somebody visits my site, in theory, there should be some number available, right? And maybe it's their first time visiting my site and they click the add button. I need to establish and create this session, right? This number we're keeping track of. Where should I do that? How could I do that? Should I do it in the ad? Because remember, all I have to do is say session count equals 0. And now it's available in session. But is this where I want to do that?
No. Well, you have to add it after that. It will
Yeah.
be in that route.
It'll be in this route, you think? Let's try it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've established this count session. And then when they click the button, what am I wanting to do?
Add.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to add 1, right? So I'm going to say session, sorry, of count. And then the fast way to do this is to say plus equals 1. Now, this plus equals 1 is the same thing as saying right? It's doing the same thing. You just don't have to rewrite this name again. You're saying,
It's
hey,
just a shortcut, in other words.
exactly. It's just saying, hey, the new value of session count is what the old value was plus 1. So it's a shortcut. So I'll keep this here for you guys as you're watching. It's a shortcut for, let me just say session of count plus equals 1. Okay. Then we're going to redirect. And I want to be able to show that session on my HTML, right? And so how do I take some information from my backend and give it to my HTML? Anybody remember?
You have to do the Jinja and the HTML.
Yeah. But first I have to give my HTML my value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to give my HTML my session value. So where do I do that?
On the render, on the
Yeah, right here.
yeah.
So I could say count equals session count. Perfect. Now, can anybody see an error with this or a potential issue that we're going to have here? There's 2 big ones.
I think on the on the app route, on the first one, since you have the index HTML and then you have the count session, on the second one, you don't have it going anywhere on the redirect? Maybe?
So it remember session, once we establish it, any of these I can use it in. So it's just a dictionary of keys and values. So I can count it. You know, I can pull it in here, I can pull it in there. I don't need to pass it through, but good idea. I see what you're saying. So let's say my user clicks on my button for the 5th time. When my button is clicked, right, on the ad, boom, it goes and runs this route. What's the first thing this method does, or this function does?
It's gonna run it line by line.
Yeah, exactly. So it's gonna go on line 12 and it's gonna say, okay, I need to run this. And then what's line 13 doing?
It's just stating
The number
that they
times
Just starting everything at 0.
Starting everything at 0. So if it's the 5th time I've clicked it and we're going to add, line 13 is just resetting it every single time.
Because basically that's not an equal sign, that's just an assignment operator, and it takes the value on the right hand side and assigns it to the whatever is on the left hand side.
Exactly. It's like how we never declare a variable within a for loop, right? Because every time the iteration happens, it redeclares that variable. Or we never declare, we never declare a variable that we want to keep track of an information, like, you know, if we're adding stuff to a new list or something like that, we never declare it in there. We have to declare it outside our for loop. Same sort of idea here, right? If
Whereas
every
the key-
time they click add, it's just going to reset it to value. So it's always going to stay 1 because it's going to reset it to 0, even if it's the 100th time. And then it's going to add 1. And then we have our count session here, right? So it's never going to change from 1. So that's big issue number 1. The second issue is, what if it's the first time somebody's viewing our page, right? They've never come to our site before. Well, the first thing that renders, if they go to localhost 5000, is render template count equals session count. Does this exist? Or more so, sorry, does this exist? It's the first time they've ever established and come to our page. Does this exist?
No, not yet.
Not yet, right? So we're going to get an error. There's no sort of value to keep track of that. So
Why does that count not exist?
because
you
the
didn't write the session till the following, like the next step, which is the following route. with
it's
the
not
method.
established. Yeah, exactly, Charlotte. It's not established until we click this add button, right? So until
Okay.
somebody clicks the button, we haven't even created session at our current
Okay.
way.
Okay.
And so if we look here, there's a couple things we can do. Is within that first route, not a couple things, there's just one thing to do. We could say if key name in session, print key exists, else, you know, key name does not exist. That's kind of a weird way to say this. I'm going to say something a little bit different. If we say, we want to first check and say, hey, they're going to the index route, right? This main route. Let's check to see if there's anything in session, right? Because I want to be able to show that information. So I can say if, and then we could say count not in session. I think I wrote that correctly. So we're saying, hey, when you first come here, we're going to check session and say, hey, is there a key of count? And if there's not, let's go ahead and create one and set it equal to 0. If there is a key, then it's not going to reset it, right? Like if we've already established, or let's say it's the 100th time they've clicked on the button and we're redirecting here, it's not going to reestablish that, or it's not going to change it to 0. It's just saying, hey, if that doesn't already exist, let's go ahead and create it. And then we'll show it here. If it does already exist, okay, we'll just keep that value and that's fine. So then all we have to do is, now that that's established, we just have to handle the actual functionality. So let's test this and see if I broke it. I believe that's the right way I could say it. Okay, so it didn't break, which is what I wanted to see. Now what we could do is, we've passed it in as count. Let's actually visualize that. Let's actually visualize that. And then how do I visualize this in Jinja?
You have to put the let me see, I'm trying to think. The class, you have to put the brackets, session, whatever your keyword was.
Yeah,
Close the
I
bracket.
could, or I could do that, or I could just do this. Let's see if that worked, and then I'll explain it in a second. Cool, so it did. It's 0. So let's kind of go back. Here, I could have, you're right, Estrella, I could call session just here if I wanted to. It allows me to do that. A better practice would be to pass it in to your render template. And then remember, this value on the left is what we then refer to it as in my HTML. So if this was unicorn equals session count, here I would just put unicorn.
That
And
looks
this-
so much easier.
Yeah. And then what, again, just want to reiterate, I said if the count is not in session, meaning it's going to check session, which is a dictionary, and it's going to say, is there a key of count? If there's not, then we are establishing we're saying, okay, session count. So this is us establishing that key, and its value is 0. Again, if it is in session, then it's, this is going to be false. So it's not going to enter into line 10, and then it's going to go and return render template. Does that make sense? So now when I click add, this should go to 1. And it does. And 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. There is some other things we can do where if we want to get rid of, so for this reset, we can do 2 things, right? If we reset, a pretty simple way to reset would just say, I like to say .pop because clear just feels like too much. Like if you have a bunch of keys, clear is just kind of, that's kind of like delete everything. Pop just gets your key name. So for reset, all we have to say is session.pop. It's still working. So then we refresh, I'm adding, I'm 8, I reset down to 0. Reset. Now you might ask yourself, why could I just say, could I just say this? In theory, yeah, you could, right? It's not really doing anything different. all this is doing, because what's happening is when we pop count, it's just immediately redirecting here, and then it's going to check if that's not in session, then it's going to create it again. So either one works. Kind of doesn't matter. Because either it's going to be in session at 0, or we're going to pop it and it's not going to be in session, which then it redirects and it says, hey, if it's not in session, let's set it equal to 0. So either way, it's going to be 0. I just wanted to show you so you could get the practice of clearing things out of session by using pop. Same. This just becomes, also this is a little redundant. So session count and then session count does the same thing. So either or. Okay, let's do a subtract. So let's say that we had a button. And I'm going to subtract. We check this. Híjole. Well, fresh. Okay, now I've got subtract. And then what we will do is let's go ahead and build out my functionality. So we have this subtract that we need to go ahead and build. I'm going to say at.route subtract. Helps when I can spell it right. Okay, so we're going to say def subtract. And then what am I going to do here? How am I going to handle this? Anybody have any ideas?
So would you do the session count minus equals?
Yeah, exactly. And then I, again, return, redirect to that. Debugger's working. Refresh. I add a few, 4, subtract 1, and I can reset. Cool. Any questions on these 3 things?
No, yours was a lot easier than how I did mine, for sure.
I was about to say that too. You make it look so easy.
Oh,
Right, Jeffrey? It's
And now I understand.
yay!
yeah, I
Well, that's the
understand it
point.
better. Yeah, I definitely understand it better because I was breaking my head trying to figure out how to connect these.
I
Yeah,
was going back and forth into the notes
Yeah.
and that, but
yeah.
Absolutely. I was too. I was able to get the add button to work,
Mhm.
but I couldn't get the reset button to work. And then I don't know what I did that every time I refresh, it was just adding versus my button. So I feel like I was all over the place.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. Okay. One thing I want to show you guys is there is a value called hidden inputs that we can do when we have a form. And so let's say that, you know, I had this button and I didn't want to just do it to add, but I wanted to basically have some sort of value that I wanted to pass through. I could do input hidden. And then let's say, we're going to say random. And just so we, sorry, so this is going to be type, or let's say math, and then the value is going to be random. What this does is you will not see this input on my form. See, you don't see it. But when what did I do that on? I did that on subtract. I can say print request request form of hidden or of math. I need to bring in request up top. Cool. So if I come here, and I refresh, and I add, and then I subtract, we don't see anything, but here I get random. So it's a very common way that we can pass information. Again, my user does not see this. And this is going to come in handy when you're dealing with, it's going to come in handy when we're dealing with Ninja Gold to an extent, but really when we get into relationships with MySQL, we're going to be passing in information from a hidden perspective. So we don't see it, but we need to be able to have access. So I just wanted to show you guys that we do have input types that are hidden. Again, it's strictly for just us passing information back and forth that we can handle and do. So.
You
And-
make everything look so easy, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you. Here's why this is important, is because in Ninja Gold, let's go to Ninja Gold. You are going to have one route that handles everything. Process money. Just one. Here we have three. We have add, subtract, and reset, right? This is one of them, or there's just one route. So what we can do is we can still have three different forms that all go to the same spot. But what we could do is we make sure we pass in this input and we give a value. So for Ninja Gold, I think it's like farm, cave, house, and casino. So you would have something similar where you would have a hidden input with the name. And we want to, kind of keep these, you want to have these all the same. So I think we have it even set up here. No, that's awful. What I would do if I were you is in each form, you could have, and here how I said math, you could have, like building, right? And one of them is going to say casino. The other is going to say house. And because they're all going to the same route, if you want to understand how you're going to do that, or, because they each have different 10 to 20, 5 to 10, 2 to 5, 0 to 50 earns and takes, right? And so if we want to know, hey, am I going to add 2 to 5 somewhere in between or somewhere in between 5 and 10? Before the first thing you do is you check the request.form of, in this case, we said building. And then we could, in theory, let's say, and I know that this doesn't really apply to us, I'm just trying to help you guys. You could say like if request.form of building equals casino, then we can say session count plus or equals, session count plus, I think we use randoms, would say import random. And so now what this will do is this will change our count based off the type, right? Because then we could have a else if or elif, sorry, request dot form, and then you just keep, you know, you just have one big conditional statement. Does that make sense?
I have a question. So
Go ahead.
this random dot random, is this because it has the on the HTML it has like different counts of gold or
Mhm.
whatever?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
So it's
why?
anywhere between 2 and 50. Yeah. So let's see. I want to see if this, did I change this to casino? Yeah, it is. So we'll test it right here, right? Where random.random is going to give me, we import random. It's a library we can use. And it's got a method of random here that takes in two values. So it's going to give you a value between whatever the two values you give. So in this case, it's negative 50 and 50 because it says it earns / takes 0 to 50. So if it takes 50, we're going to go negative 50, right? If it earns 50, it goes 50. So that's why we have that. And so if we run this and we come here and I go here, in theory, I get an error. Oh, it's capital random. So maybe I need to say, I think it's the other way. I think it's random.random with a capital R. Let's try that. But we're given 3. So let's just say random Python library. Or we could do rand int. Yeah. So let's do that. Instead of random, we'll do rand int. Takes in two values. Cool. So you see that it gave me just a random number of 18. We hit the jackpot. We had 49, 78, and then it took me down, right? And so this little bit of code, again, because the form, right now it's going to subtract, but let's say there we're all going to the same place. It's got this hidden input that allows me to say casino. And then based off of that, I am able to handle that accordingly. And again, we use the random that we import up here. We use the rand int method from that. We give it two values. So you're going to use rand int for all of them. This one's 10 to 20, 5 to 10, 2 to 5, earns and takes, so negative 50 to 50. And then we can increase our gold. Now you'll have to do a couple of these things, these activities. So I'm not going to do those for you.
So close.
I did the legwork of the other stuff. You can't
No,
get me there.
I know. I was kind of glad you went through that because I was going through the examples and I watched the video like 5 times, and I feel like the examples are not they're not good examples. I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes they confuse us more than they help us,
Sure.
to be honest.
Sure.
And that's why I always do the HTML, the visual first,
Mhm.
and then try to figure out the rest.
Sure. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, so that's how you're going to handle that. And again, the other stuff I'm going to leave you to kind of figure out, but really this is how you're going to set it up. So you're really just going to have one, like it says on the platform, you're going to have two things. You're going to have one route that says this, that just gets you the page, the index. your base route, and then you've got a process money route that's going to have a big conditional statement like this. And then that's it.
Thank you, Will. That
You're
was-
welcome.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that because
You already
I
have
was
the
kind of
system.
stumped. Yeah.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
Jeffrey, he's
They said-
lifesaver right now.
They said you already helped us in this assignment. I mean, like the ninja goal that we're about to do.
Yeah. You're almost there. Almost there. All right, friends, any other questions you have? I know we're at time.
No, I don't. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just as a reminder, what we're doing next week is we're starting CRUD. And so we will we will start the MySQL connection portion of it. So we're going to really start building it out, connecting a database. Jeffrey, for this, all you have to do is just have a database created. So however way you do it, you don't need an ERD per se. You just have to have that created and then it should work just fine. So and that's what we're going to start with, is we'll be able to create and read. By next week, we'll be able to create and read on our database from the front end. So we're going to really be full stack next week, which kind of rules. And we'll do that for the next couple of weeks. So I think it's 5 weeks because we do create, read, update, delete, / modularization, one to many validations, login, reg, belt prep, and then your belt starts. So we still got a while. Still got a while. Okay. Any other questions? We're 3 minutes over.
Nope, I think we're good. Thank you. Well, have a
Of
good night,
course.
everyone.
All righty. Take care, everybody.